Buck or is it Bob?
Buck.
Buck.
Oh, Buck back there.
Then we talked about concrete.
Yeah.
So Sam came into my office, or we went to the conference room the other day, and we were talking about this, what we're going to talk about. And as we looked at things, and he said, you know, you've had the business 36 years, and the business has done so much. He says, what have I got to say? What have I got to contribute? And so we got talking about that. And the conclusion we came to was that building a business, especially a family business that's multi-generational, is like building a house. And it first has to start with the concrete foundation. So there's the concrete one. So building a business is going to start with a really good foundation. But one person builds the foundation, but they really don't know what's going to be built on top of that foundation. And that's where Sam and Luke come into play, is they get to build on top of that foundation, and they get to decide what that's going to look like. And maybe with any luck, my grandson Henry and my granddaughter Isabella and Sophia, they'll get to build a pool or tennis court or something else on top of that business. But a family business, like a community, is multi-generational. It's made up of small businesses. It's made up of small pieces that each one is very important. So I'd like to start off by saying what it was like to work with my dad. We grew up out in River Oaks, and a small house right at the edge of River Oaks and Sanson Park, and worked out of my dad's garage with him. So back then it was vacuum tubes, right? And Dad did stereos in homes primarily. Did a few commercial stuff, but almost everything residential. And from the time that I can remember, I was following Dad around, everywhere he went, and he would come even pick me up at school, and I'd go to work with him in the afternoons. But Dad had got a used RCA color TV, and he brought it home one day and it didn't work. And I think I was 8 or 9 years old, and he looked at me and he says, if you can figure out how to fix the TV, you can have it. So I got very excited and took the thing apart and checked all the tubes, replaced the tubes. It had an old mechanical tuner that I had to clean the ball bearings with an eraser to wipe the tarnish off, put the whole thing all back together. And that night, The Wizard of Oz was going to come on. And we had never seen anything in color before, because all TVs, for younger folks, were all black and white. And so I got it on, everything working, turned it on. The picture was great, but it was black and white. And I said, I was so disappointed. I didn't know. I was fiddling with things, trying to figure out, well, where's the color? And all of a sudden, Dorothy wakes up. And it's in color. And it was the most spectacular thing that I had ever seen. Another thing my dad did, we were working in a guy's office, and I was cutting a speaker in a wall. And I didn't measure right. And right behind the speaker, I didn't check, there was a stud. And so the speakers weren't going to be symmetrical. And so we had to redo the wall. Well, my dad said, before we redo the wall, I want you to sign your name on your mistake. And so my name had to be up there until we got the wall fixed. And my dad taught me the value of owning my mistakes and standing up to them and said, this is my mistake, I made it. I put my name on it. So Dad just had a tremendous influence on me. He was a wonderful dad. And so I continued to work with Dad in high school. But in high school, I got distracted. And my junior English teacher came to me my senior year and said, Jordan, if you don't figure out how to pass junior grammar again this semester, you're not going to graduate. Well, that got my attention. So I worked really hard and pulled it up, and I actually wound up graduating 4th in my high school class. Unfortunately, it was from the bottom, but I did graduate. I'm very proud of that. That was the highest level of education I would ever achieve. But my oldest brother had come back from Vietnam. He was airborne, and he said, "You got to try sports skydiving. It's really fun." I said, "Sign me up." So we went out, we started skydiving, and I would jump into like 250, 300 jumps, and we'd jump into county fairs and chili cook-offs and concerts, and we just had a blast. And so one day I jumped out, and 400 feet off the ground, my parachute completely collapsed, and I fell out of the sky like a rock. And I absolutely knew that I was dead. So I got myself in the best position I could get, and just before I hit the ground, miraculously, I mean just microseconds before I hit, the parachute snapped back open. And my brother and my fiance at the time were back at the drop zone, and they saw me drop below the horizon, and because they knew that I was dead, so they just drove out there to pick me up. But I was just sitting there on the road, they picked me up, put another parachute on me, put me up the airplane, and threw me out again. So that really got my attention. I realized, maybe I'm not immortal. So it scared me so bad that I went to church. And it really did, took a while, but it really did change my life. Met God, it really did make a difference. So I'm sitting there in church, and I've had this epiphany that churches need sound. And that's what I grew up, because I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. But I put two and two together, and I said, wow, what a great way I can serve churches. And that was my calling, okay? So the way I would market myself, so I went and bought books on sound system engineering and acoustics, and would work my way through the book a chapter at a time, go to the back of the book, take the test, and so that's how I taught myself sound system engineering and acoustics. Then I would find out that a building was being built, and find out who the architect was, call the architect up, take him out to lunch, ask him, so what do you do for sound systems in the churches you design? He says, well, I usually leave that up to the owner. And I said, well, how's that work for you? He says, usually not for well. And I said, I can guarantee that if you'll get me involved, it'll be a great end result. And so I was able to talk to a couple of guys that used me. They worked out quite well. They began to recommend me. And before long, I was bringing more business into my dad's company than he was. And I wanted to do larger projects. I really loved acoustics. I loved sound. I wanted it to grow and not be bigger. And my dad came to me and he says, I love working out of my garage. He said, I don't want to change. I love the commute from the bedroom to the garage. I don't want to change that. He says, you need to go start your own business. So in 1984, I had a 1976 beautiful black Pontiac Grand Prix, and I sold that. Went to a pawn shop, bought a handful of tools, I bought a used white cargo van, and started our Electro Acoustics out of our garage 36 years ago. Things grew quite well. We had a big high school project down in Rosebeck, Texas, the Rosebeck Goats. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with goats. And they were building a new, very large high school. And about the largest project I'd ever done on my own was about $15,000. That was a $150,000 project. So that was a factor of 10 to 1. And Sue and I had to mortgage our house, everything we owned, to get bonded on that project. So we were all in to get that done. It turned out great. A few years after that, we got an opportunity. We'd grown, get an opportunity to bid on the Rangers ballpark in Arlington. Then it was about $1.5 million. So again, another factor of 10 to 1. Again, we had to go all in. I was seeing a lot of larger national companies begin to purchase smaller companies. And I realized that if I was going to remain in business, it would be a family business, which I loved, that we either had to go big or go home. And so I wanted to learn to be big enough to compete with national companies, but still maintain the flavor of being a small regional family business. So we wound up getting that. At the end of the day, when we finished the project, we probably lost $50,000 real dollars. But we finished the project well. established a good relationship with them. We learned what our capabilities were and what we could do. And that's probably the job that really put us on the map. Okay? So as it began to grow, and I began to ask, well, why am I doing this? The value that came to mind was the value of stewardship. That I realized that God owned this business, and I was just merely managing it for him while he was gone. And that the value of stewardship means that the careful and responsible management of someone else's property. So I realized that this was not my business, but I was going to manage the business in a way and grow the business in a way that honored God. And so he's really blessed it, and the business has really grown. 1994, we wound up doing the Bass Hall, and it has grown from there. So that was kind of the foundation, kind of how we got things established. And then I'm going to turn things over to Sam and let him talk about how he and his brother Luke have built on that foundation.
So after we established the foundation of the company, really built on this idea of stewardship. The next question and the challenge for Luke and me has been, what's the structure that you put on top of this foundation? And so for us, we've got our additional 3 core values, craftsmanship, relationship, and a positive get-it-done attitude. And so I'll talk about how we use those values to continue to build on to what it was that my dad and mom started. So for us, craftsmanship is this idea that you want to make it beautiful, you want to build it to last. And it's a value that's really important to us. And so we've really pursued that in a couple of different ways. One of which is our pursuits of certifications and our industry expertise. And it's that idea that, if we really can't deliver something of quality to people, then we're not going to be valued. And so Luke graduated from Texas A&M in 2011. He came back to work at Electro Acoustics as an installer and started at the very bottom and began working his way up, learning how to lead projects and taking on greater and greater responsibilities. And he took on the challenge of pursuing industry certification for us. So the AV industry doesn't have a government or regulating entity for us, so we're an unregulated industry, but we have a volunteer association called the HEBCC, which is the Audiovisual Integrated Experience Association. And their passion is to improve the quality of AV technology for the community and globally. And part of how they do that is through their certification process. And we recognize that for us to be able to compete with some of these larger companies, we had to be able to show that we could do it just as good as a big name, national or international company. So Luke took on the challenge of getting the Certified Technology Specialist or CTS credential, and he did that first for himself, and then he led our entire company of individuals pursuing that certification. And so individuals who maybe, they graduated high school and maybe haven't done anything beyond that, he helped them, go through the process of learning the material, being able to pass the test, prove their certification, increase their earning potential. And so he did that for our entire company. So now about 80% of us, it's mostly those of us who are not the technical side, have their certification. So it was a remarkable transformation for us. He then took on the opportunity to challenge us as a company because HEBCC has a certification for companies as well. And it's called the APEX certification, which is the Audiovisual Provider of Excellence. And so we were one of the first 10 companies worldwide to earn that certification with Luke's leadership. And for all of those efforts that he brought us through, Luke earned the CTS Holder of the Year. So out of 12,000 members globally, HEBCC recognized him and his efforts as the best of the best in 2016. Now he leads their certification committee, so he's helping guide, improve, and advance certifications for the industry globally. So certifications and expertise have been a big part of how we grew that, but it's also not just in how we do our craft, but it's also craftsmanship applies to how we operate as a business. And so one of the ways I've been able to really contribute to the organization and help the team is through implementing solid business practices. And so one of the things that we've done over the last several years that's been big for us is we're huge readers. We learn a lot. We know that there's a lot of wisdom out there. If we want to be the best, we've got to keep reading and growing. And so we came across Gino Wickman's book, Traction, and we've been implementing the entrepreneurial operating system and that framework in our business for the last several years, and it's really been very powerful. It's helped our managers really learn how do you lead an organization, how do you run meetings, helped all of our organization know, these are our priorities, these are our values, these are our visions, and it's really helped us function much stronger as an organization. And so that for us is the craftsmanship value. Our third value for the company is relationships, and this idea that you want to serve others before yourself. And relationship is really why I came back to Electro Acoustics, and I think one of the real values of having a family business. So for me, I grew up around the business. I've worked for the company in the summers. I worked in our warehouse. I worked on project sites, and then went to A&M also to get a business degree so I could come back. While I was in college, I had a 7-year-old friend of mine who was killed by a drunk driver, and as I saw what happened to the family, I really decided I needed to pursue a calling in law. I wanted to become a Texas prosecutor, so I went to law school after telling Dad I've got to do something else, and ended up joining the Air Force and served in Colorado, and Afghanistan, North Dakota, and really I loved it. But in North Dakota, my wife and I encountered some personal tragedy, and we realized how isolated we were. We realized how much family meant to us, and we knew that we needed to come back. And so I called Dad up and I said, what would you think if I decided to quit being a lawyer and come get a real job? And Dad said I would have to ask my brother. And so I called Luke up and we talked about it, and we decided that together we could build something much more impactful and bigger than either of us could do on our own. And so Luke welcomed me back into Electro Acoustics 3 years ago, and we've just had an incredible time doing that. And so relationships are really, really important to us. I think it's a big value for family businesses. And it's something that really impacts everything we do, because for us as Electro Acoustics, rather than being a national company, we really have focused on being a regional company. So we want to, because we value relationships, we're in the community, we're involved in the community. We want our people to be involved in their community. We want them to be fathers and wives and husbands and mothers, and to be involved with their kids and be involved in all the great things that go on in the community. And so to do that, we've got to stay local, but that means we can't just do, we can't just do performing arts venues, we can't just do schools, we can't just do conference rooms, because that's not enough to sustain the organization. And so we've really found a way to do everything, and so that's why we're just as proud to do things like Bass Hall as we are to be involved in the upcoming Bedford Community Center project. And so, that's one of the values I think that we get to bring to the table, is that the same people who are working on Dickey's Arena and Bass Hall and the Rangers Ballpark also get to be involved in our churches, and they get to be involved in our community centers, and they get to be involved in our city halls. So that's our value of relationship. And our last one is a positive, get it done attitude. And I really love this one, and what typifies this value the best is a story about one of our team members. We were doing a project for Cook Children's Hospital, and our project had gotten behind, and the lead was going to have to stay all night long, and he may or may not even finish the project by the deadline. And his colleagues who were working on other projects around the city found out about his predicament, and on their own they all closed up their projects for the day, and they made it out to Cook Children's, and as a team they worked all through the night to get that project across the line for Cook Children's. And that's the value that our team has, and what we've been able to instill in them, because as we invest in them, we find that they take that same investment and they put it back into the community and to the clients that we serve. So for us, as Luke and I now kind of are starting to help lead the way for the next generation, the question we've got to ask ourselves is, what are the aspects of Electro Acoustics that we need to start remodeling? Where are we expanding? What do we need to redo? And that's an exciting question. Unfortunately, because of our strong values, we've got a solid, guideline for how we can do that, and it just gives us unbelievable freedom to be able to continue to build something that really makes a difference in the community. And as we think about the value of small and family businesses, I really think that that's the heart of it, which is a small family business represents the unique personal vision of that entity. And so the values and the vision that Luke and I have are unique to us, and the 4 core values of Electro Acoustics are ours, and each of you have your own values and your own visions for what you're trying to do. And as you're working in the community, you're sharing this vision with the community through the work that you do. And so, what I love about what makes a community special is it really is a reflection of all the individual values of the members of the community. And as I think about the kind of community I want to be in, I want to be in a community where the values are shaped by my neighbors and the businesses who are with me. And so that's what we get to do. And so thank you so much to the Chamber just for the hard work that it takes of creating a place where businesses can come together, we can learn from each other, we can share the books we're reading, we can share the practices we're learning, we can work together and build something really special, because that's what makes a community. And so for the HEB's Chamber's mission of building businesses and sustaining and strengthening communities, that's, in my opinion, that's exactly what family business is all about. And so, one of the things we've read is Socrates says that the city is the soul of a person writ large. And what he's saying is that the city or the community is the sum of the individual values of the people and the businesses that make it up. And so as you think about what you're trying to do in HEB, you really have an incredible opportunity to build something very special and very unique that's worth working for. And so, we have loved family business and what it's been able to do for our family, and we just wanted to thank you for allowing us to share our story.
John says we've got some time for questions if there's any. Yes, ma'am.
Just curious, how many employees do you have?
30. So, but we also will contract out for different parts. So in 2019, not only did we complete Dickey's, but we also did an indoor practice facility for SMU. We did an indoor practice facility for UNT. We did a courtyard system for UNT. Tarleton football field, the new TCU, Eastside, I think Azle City Hall and North Lake City Hall.
Or Music Activity Center.
On Texas A&M, the new facility for the band hall down there, an outdoor deal, and lots of churches and as well. So it was an enormous year. It was a 26% growth over the previous year. So bringing everybody together to get that done. And Sam's being a bit modest. Sam is our general manager. He just wrapped up his EMBA at TCU, and so he has brought the strategic discipline, business aspect side to the business. I can't do that. Luke can't do that. But Sam is really very strategic, very good, and so it's amazing how much we got accomplished last year. Yes, ma'am.
Sam, I just want to thank you so much for serving in our military.
Thank you very much. It's a real privilege. So.
Sam, tell us about, just like your dad had the lesson that his dad taught him, what lesson have you learned through the business so far?
Besides picking
Yeah. I think the hardest part about a family business is because you're so connected with everyone. I know everyone there. I know their spouses. I know their kids. A lot of times, the biggest challenge I face is addressing issues quickly. We want to be gracious, we want to work with people, we want to see them succeed, grow, and develop, and sometimes I've had several issues even in the last month where I've just been dragging my feet on addressing an issue because I know it's going to be a difficult conversation and the person's not going to like it, and maybe we can get around it. And the reality is I don't serve them well by delaying. But when you care about people that much, it definitely can be hard to work through some of those difficult things. Even though you trust each other, and even though everyone has each other's back and is fully committed, you have to address things quickly, and that makes it better for everyone.
Yeah, we've never laid anybody off in 36 years. Okay, and so we were talking this morning about with the coronavirus coming up that was probably going to create a slump in workload, and so how were we going to face that to keep everybody busy and training, and what could we do to think about that in advance to do that, because we've got a big commitment to families because it's not their fault either. you know, so people is hard. So,
What facility that you've worked on have you found to be the biggest challenge sound-wise?
You know, a couple of them. One of them is Broadway Baptist Church, okay? And without getting technical, the church loves their organ and choir, okay? So they want the sound to reverberate a long time so it feels like it envelops you, okay? Like you feel like you're singing as part of a large choir. Well, it's wonderful for organ music, and it's wonderful for choral. But when you try to speak in a room like that, it literally, if you clap your hands, it takes the sound 4.5 seconds before it's no longer audible. Okay, so each word runs into the other word. All right, so to get sound intelligible in that kind of an environment, you know, the upper limit is like 2.5 seconds of what you would have for organ music in a church, and this one's almost double that. And so we've got these digital speakers that focus the sound. They're 20 foot tall. So that one's very, very difficult. You can understand what's being said there, which I think is a miracle. But in terms of difficulty, that is one. So. Anyway, thank you guys very much for having us. And